Hello, it's April 7, 2022, and welcome to this week's Rights in Russia interview. Today, our guest is Jens Siegert, a journalist, writer, and activist who for many years headed the Boell Foundation's office in Moscow, where he continues to live. He is the author of 2 books about Russia that seek to provide insights into Russian life for both German and international audiences. Thank you for joining us today, Jens.
Thank you for inviting me.
You recently left Moscow, where you live. Could you tell us when that was and why you left? And maybe say something about what the atmosphere was like in the city at the time.
I left Moscow approximately a month ago. And that was about 2 weeks after the beginning, a little bit more than 2 weeks after the beginning of the war. And I left Moscow first because with my wife together, we planned to leave Moscow at that time. That was by accident. But secondly, it was not really clear at that moment how much risk will foreigners face in Russia, especially foreigners who, like I, are in some way involved in public affairs, commenting politics, commenting the war. And as you know, about 10 days after the war, there was adopted this new law about fake news, telling that everybody would be punished by law who will not report the official opinion of the Russian state about what is going on in Ukraine. And it was not quite clear how would this affect us. The situation, the overall situation at that time in Moscow was not different than before the war. There have been some lines in front of ATM machines because young people in Moscow were used to use their smartphones for paying for their purchases. And one of the most popular paying systems was Apple Pay. And Apple withdraw from Russia, and so these people couldn't pay with their smartphones, and they had to go to the ATM machines to withdraw cash to make their purchases. And in pharmacies, people were looking for medicine, mostly people who had some prescriptions that they need for their, and it was foreseen that they needed, and they were buying medicines, for example, for some months in advance, because they feared that at some time there would be a shortage. But that was more or less all you could see, not what you could feel, but you could see. Of course, everybody was talking about it, about the war and how it was going to affect, but strangely, people were not so much talking about what was going on in Ukraine, but more how it will already affects their life. Will it be possible to travel abroad? Yeah, will it be possible to buy things? Will it be possible to get spare parts for their cars? Will the special food for their pets still be available, and such things? So as since the month I'm not in Moscow, and I not really know how things are happening there, how are going there, only from hearsay. But what I hear from my acquaintance, from my friends, relatives there back in Moscow, this didn't change fundamentally. It's more or less the same situation.
And does that hold true as well with regard to people's attitude about the war?
No, that changed. In the first 2 weeks, we have seen a lot of protests, and the state coming back to the protesters, arresting a lot of them. But if you're, for example, looking to the figures, the OVD info website, the people who are registering the arrests, they reached 13,000 or more than 13,000 arrests within this first 2 weeks. Since then, there have been added only 2,000, only in brackets, naturally. So that means the protest went down. This might be because of the repression of the state, because it's risky to do so. This might be because, as we know, many people who are against the war left the country because of security reasons, because they don't bear it to be in a country which is on war with their neighbors, different reasons. But there is a sort of reporting as well that the state propaganda, that the state narratives are gaining track, that the support for Putin and in the end the war is going up. It's a little bit like a society which is closing up because it is in war with the outside world. So the narrative Putin put into Russia, that Russia is alone in the world and there are only enemies outside, which was not true before the war. Now the war makes it more reliable, a more reliable story, which people are eager to accept, more eager to accept inside Russia.
So you think that the government propaganda has been pretty successful?
In this way, yes.
The government.
The question is more what is the motivation why people are supporting it now? For example, among people closely to the state, there is very clearly a situation where they are assessing their possibilities. To go abroad, they don't have the possibilities. They are already mixed up in this. There are sanctions, or they are threatened to be sanctioned, and they know their fate is now with Putin and his regime. They can't. There is no good way out for them. And then they decide, okay, if there's no good way out, then I will do everything possible to have a good position to be in. Many people in Russia, I think, get their information only from the Kremlin propaganda. They got this information from the Kremlin propaganda for the past 15, 20 years. And for them, what the propaganda says is quite logical, because it is nothing really different to what they got to hear before the war. And then there is a not so small number of people who are in principle against the war, or against war, who are really desperate that the war is going on, who are really hurt by people being killed there, or have had to flee, and all those terrible things which comes with the war, but who are convinced that this is not the fault of Russia and Putin, but it's the fault of the West. They who are convinced that Russia is only defending itself, and that if Putin wouldn't have begin this war, then the war would have come to Russia from the West. And this is for me, it's the most difficult part, because many of my friends and relatives there are part of these people who agree with me that the war is really terrible, but who have a totally a diametral a totally different assess on what are the facts on the ground. Yeah, these people are too denying that Russian soldiers are killing civilians, that the Russian army is shelling, the Russian artillery is shelling living quarters in Ukrainian cities. They really believe. Yeah, I know these people and I trust them that they are honest with me talking about it. They really believe that this are doing the Ukrainian fascists, and this is really difficult for me to bear.
What about, I mean, television? We read that most people throughout Russia get their news from the state television channels, but what about the internet? Is there an open online conversation going on, or has that been limited?
Yeah, it had been limited. You know that Twitter, Facebook have been blocked or are blocked in Russia. A lot of available alternative independent internet media has been shut down or deliberately closed because of this fake news law, because they would be facing criminal accusations if they would. For the Novaya Gazeta, for example, the Novaya Gazeta, they said we closed down because we can say what we think that is necessary to say, because if we say what we think is going on, then the state will prosecute us. There will be criminal cases be opened against us. Yeah. But if you want to get information, then you can get information. First, there is the Telegram social network, which is not blocked yet, and there is everything, really everything available. And then a lot of people, actually, I don't know anyone who doesn't. A lot of people are using VPN channels. And through VPN channels, they have the access to everything, including media who report in Russian, like Medusa, who reports from Riga, from Latvia. And you can, if you want to get this information, then you can get the information. The precondition is that you have to know and have the need to get different information than the state information. And the second thing is, yeah, you have to believe that there are different and independent information. In the end, that there are information at all. And that's something the Kremlin destroyed too in the last years. Many people, and those about my acquaintance, my friends I talked about earlier, they don't believe that there is such a thing like independence at all. You are always part of a community, not a society, but a community. And they are part of the community which named Russia. And there is only and on the other hand, there are other communities named NATO, Germany, the US, Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is a different case, yeah. And they have their truth, and we have our truth. But our truth is our truth.
Very interesting. So, moving to the impact of the sanctions from the West. I mean, has there been an impact on the lives of ordinary people in the country?
Yeah, as I said, people are fearing that there will be shortages. Therefore, they are trying to buy some spare things. Medicine, one of the most important thing. Spare parts for cars, because most cars at least in the big cities are Western made, even if they are made are assembled in Russia. but the most parts are coming from outside the country, and that will end at some time. Some basic food, but there the state had already limited the possibility to buy big amounts of them, like sugar or wheat or buckwheat, which is very important in the Russian kitchen, but not so. And what they face at the moment very much is a very high prices. There is some goods are costing now, especially for example medicines or something like that, up to 2 times higher than before the war, and people see that with their money they can't buy as much as they have been able before the war. But again, I have left a month ago, and I'm only talking here about hearsay. People saying that in everyday life, more or less looks the same. The shelves of the grocery shops are not empty; they are fully stuffed. The same at the moment with other shops, though in big shopping malls, there are many shops now closed, which belong to international brands who withdraw from Russia. Yeah? For example, the IKEA shops, which are all about Russia, are closed, or H&M, who sell clothes, and other.
Yeah, right. So we read that in the main, the troops sent to Ukraine don't include soldiers from Moscow or St. Petersburg. And it would seem that this is a deliberate policy by the authorities not to upset people living in Russia's 2 major cities. Would that be a fair point?
I've heard about that as well, but I have no proof that this is really the case. But that might be, I think that it might make some sense from the point of view of the Russian authorities, because in all new polls about the support of the war, the 2 cities, Moscow and St. Petersburg, are the only regions in Russia where the support is less than 50%. Always saying at once that polls in Russia are at the moment a very tricky thing, because we know what people are answering, but we don't know why they are answering this way and not another way. Yeah, they may answer in this way or another because they think that it might be dangerous to answer in another way. And then there is a big problem with polls. Ordinary, if pollsters are asking people, are they willing to take part in a poll, they have about 10% of those asked that they are willing to do so. And this
only
is
10% are willing.
Yeah, only 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, but the pollsters can deal with that. They know that, they have experience with that, and they anyway they can. This is not affecting the results or the reliability of the results. But now in Russia, it seems that the return is about 3-4%, and that makes the polls very unreliable.
Do you happen to know, I mean, Levada is the only polling place that I know about, but how they conduct their polls? Is it by phone? Is it in person?
Mostly by phone, and mostly by mobile phone.
By mobile phone.
That's a principal problem as well, because don't discuss that. But that has been a problem even before. Yeah.
Right.
It is the country is too big, and it is too expensive to have everybody everywhere, people going outside and really asking people face to face. The pollsters are normally trying to counter these problems with focus groups. I don't know whether there are in the actual polls are focus groups involved, but maybe they do so.
Great, thank you. So is it true to say that Russia is losing this war? And if so, what would be the impact on the Putin regime of losing the war?
Now there is a big discussion now on. The official position is that they are doing everything like planned. They even the withdrawal of troops in the north and around Kiev is because they achieved their goals there and now are concentrating on this is the official position on the initial aims to free the Donbass. In the east. I think at the moment, it looks very much like Russia is losing this war. But what does it mean Russia is losing this war? It might mean that if the aim of this war was to topple the Kiev, the Ukrainian government, and to make Ukraine a satellite of Russia again, yes, then they are losing the war. If it will be to gain the Donbass and to hold the Donbass, to separate the Donbass from Ukraine, to hold the Crimea and maybe a part of the south, the so-named corridor from the Russian mainland to Crimea, then at the moment they don't lose. This is one point. Another point is Russia loses the war with those forces they have now deployed. And military experts don't see a possibility to reverse this with the soldiers deployed now. But if this is under the condition that this is really, as it's named in Russia, a military operation. If they make it officially a war and mobilize and declaring a mobilization of all possible soldiers in Russia, then this might change the situation again, and Russia might be able to attack other Ukrainian territories again. In the end, I suppose, I guess, I fear, I'm afraid, I say, for the Ukraine might be the choice only to accept that parts of Ukraine which have been which are part of the official Ukraine since 2014 are going to Russia. Or to not to win this war. I don't see that this will end without some compromise, because if you're looking, will Russia win the war or will not the war? Ukraine is not able to conquer Russia to win this war. Yeah. And then there is another discussion which is really important. In the West, many politicians say now there is no possibility that we can allow Russia to win the war, because this will have consequences which are going far beyond Ukraine. Yeah. And on the other side, in Russia, there is a discussion on there is no possibility that this war will end without our victory, because if we don't win this war, then the existence, the sheer existence of Russia is under threat. And you see that there we are coming into very, very difficult and very, very dangerous waters. Yes. If a nuclear power thinks that their existence is under threat.
Right. According to reports even a week ago, about 250,000 people have left Russia, and these are mostly the young, educated professional. Will Russia ever be able to recover from this?
Oh, Russia has had a brain drain all the way. This is only a very, very big speeding up for at least a short time. Yeah, there have been about this amount of people leaving Russia every year since at least 2012. So this is a development which is speeding up, but it's not something totally new. And then the question is, what does mean recover? Most people I know who left the country, and this is more anecdotal evidence. It's nothing empirical. Yeah, as in the end, nobody really knows how much people left the country really for the reason that there is war. Because people don't say on the border, I left the country because of the war. They have other reasons for that. Most people I've spoken with don't say that they are in exile now. They left the country temporarily because at the moment it is not possible. Yes, there is not much hope that this will change in the foreseeable future. But the mood of the people is that they are not in exile. This is nothing really, really exceptional. The Russian emigration after and during the civil war 100 years ago, they were doing the same. And then that this was a permanent exile. But that is the situation at the moment. And not very much really, but there are people who already went back to Russia. As I said at the beginning, for me, I couldn't assess really the risk I'm in at the beginning of the war. Now I think I have a little bit more information. And this is the same like people. Some people left because they felt, okay, if I don't leave now, then maybe the borders will be closed, or maybe I will be arrested, or something else will take place. Then they saw how it developed and saw that it's not that bad. Or again, they had reasons to come back. I know a lot of people who would would leave the country if they could, but they can't because, for example, they have elderly parents to take care of, and can't take them with them. They have to stay in the country.
Mm-hmm. How strong is the anti-war movement? You mentioned that over 15,000 protesters have been arrested since the start of the war. So has that, and that the protests have gone down, is it your sense that there is still a protest movement out there waiting to flower again?
Oh, I don't think so. Unfortunately. Okay. But the protest movement, people going to the streets in the first, taking the streets in the first 2 weeks after the beginning of the war, wouldn't have changed the course anyway. They might have triggered other people who are not like anti-war, but against some other developments against that their life is going to be less good than it have been today if they would have joined. And at the moment, this doesn't look very likely to take place in some imaginable nearer future. The other way around, as I already said, there is a little bit how it's in English, rallying around the flag going on in Russia. So many people say, yes, yeah, I'm not so. I don't like Putin very much, and I don't like but now my country is at war, and so I'm with my country. So this mood seems to be gaining track very much in Russia. And when this will this change at some time when the sanctions will really bite and it will really affect the everyday life of people? I'm skeptical. Historically, there is not really evidence that that will happen. The other way around. Historically, it is rather so that people are willing to take hardships in such cases and again rallying around the flag.
The war has led to even greater domestic repression in Russia. More generally, the authorities have closed down Memorial Human Rights Center, and individuals such as Svetlana Ganushkina and Oleg Orlov have been arrested for protesting. So what's the real situation for Russia's human rights defenders now as individuals and as organizations? And what about the lawyers who might still be working on human rights cases in their regions? I mean, are they able to continue? What's your view, kind of a general perspective on this?
No, this crackdown already began before the war. That the Prosecutor's General Office or the prosecutors, the Moscow Prosecutor's Office asked to liquidate, to close down Memorial or the Memorial Human Rights Center in autumn. And this is now the end of the process to close it down. And people have been arrested for protesting for a long time, at least, yes, the last 10 years, almost, yeah, inevitable. If you are going to protest, you have to be ready to be arrested. In this sense, nothing really happened, but things got worse. There is much more acceptance today in the population to crack down, and much less acceptance for dissidents. If you're talking to people and say, no, why they are arrested and this is not right, even people who maybe 2 months ago would have been agreed now say, but what do you want? We are at war. Yeah, and in war times there are different rules apply. In war times we can't accept in an enemy, a fifth column, like it was told in the Soviet Union, and now again. And Putin already said something about that as well. He said that there are people inside the country who are like flies, which are flying in someone's mouth, and we have to spit them out. And he meant those protesters inside the country.
Right. So coming to my last question, what can people in the West do? Is there anything they can do to support human rights activists, both those who remain in Russia and those who have left? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, there is nothing new. First is talk about publish something about it. Don't let them be forgotten if something is going on in the country. For me, it's very difficult to say whether this will continue, but until now, then the Soviet authorities and now the Russian authorities at the end are at least a little bit sensible to that. Yeah, this might help one or another person. It won't change the picture in a way, but we might help someone. Very important to help those people who were forced to leave the country, who had to leave the country and now are mainly in the West. Some are in Georgia, some are in Armenia, some are in a lot of people are in Turkey, because to this country they could travel without having a visa. Support their work materially as well. For example, I can imagine that Memorial will continue some of its work from abroad as well. We have some Memorial organizations in the Czech Republic, in Germany, in Italy, in France, and they are very, very supportive of that. The main thing is for me now not to. I will put it the other way around. The Ukrainian ambassador in Germany few days ago in an interview said, all Russians are my enemies at the moment. For the Ukrainians, such thing, it's understandable at the moment. But for me and for us, not all Russians are enemies at the moment. There are Russians who are against this war, who work against this war, who work for a more democratic Russia and a democratic society there. And even if we now say that they have some responsibility for what is going on as well, we will need them. We will need them to change if we want to change anything. If something has to change or something will change in Russia at some time, then these people will again play a crucial role, like the dissidents have been playing a crucial role at the end of the Soviet Union.
Right. Thank you so much, Jens Siegert, for sharing your perspectives on rights in Russia today during this crisis period. I particularly appreciated your comments about communities and hope to read more about that. We wish you the very best as you navigate these treacherous waters and hope to see you again soon in better times.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, better times would be very, very welcome.
Yes, absolutely.